The reboot. It's a dreaded word in Hollywood, and there have been many.
They were rebooting my old show.
Many disappointments over the years when it comes to the rebooting of our favorite franchises. However, there are a rare few that actually surpass the original movies or series that they are based on. They breathe new life into a seemingly dead franchise. And these are the reboots that we're going to look at here today, but don't worry, Cowboy Bebop is not on the list.
Will I ever see you again?
Tom Cruise's Mission Impossible series is so big and so popular that you probably forgot or heck didn't even know that it was actually a reboot. Mission Impossible started out life as a spy espionage series which ran from 1966 to 1973, plus an original reboot in 1988. Now though, if you say the words Mission Impossible, typically either the classic tune or Tom Cruise jumping from somewhere high comes to mind. The movie franchise now is one of the biggest and most consistent blockbusters of all time. When looking to start their own monsterverse, the producers turned to their biggest stars to begin the franchise, Godzilla and King Kong. The 2014 Godzilla movie was, let's be honest here, okay at best and not as good as the original. However, Kong Skull Island is arguably the best in the franchise, even better than the original 1933 stop motion picture and Peter Jackson's 2005 remake. That's because the movie took the story in a whole new direction, as well as fleshing out Kong and the world and setting up the rest of the monsterverse as a whole. Tim Burton's Batman movies are rightfully universally loved, and Adam West's campy TV series is certainly endearing, but the franchise was going down the drain after Joel Schumacher's Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, both of which are universally panned. The series needed to pivot fast.
Exactly.
And they did so by turning to, at that time, a relatively unknown indie filmmaker, some guy named Christopher Nolan.
You look fine.
Who had only worked on the likes of Memento, Insomnia, and Following. It seemed like a strange choice, but that decision quickly bore fruit, with Batman Begins bringing the caped crusader into the modern era with a gritty and realistic story, and it was a movie that set the benchmark for all origin stories to follow. Nolan surpassed himself again with The Dark Knight, and while Dark Knight Rises is a bit of a mixed bag, overall, the trilogy was so popular and so successful that it set the tone for a number of gritty reboots to come. Speaking of, I was very disappointed that Casino Royale wasn't on this list because that was, like the ultimate reboot. So here I am, putting Casino Royale on this list. So yeah, leave me alone in the comments. You're welcome. Now, when you say the words reboot in regards to The Mummy, you're probably thinking of the awful 2017 Tom Cruise remake and probably have some choice words for me. However, what I am actually going to say is that Brendan Fraser's 1999 classic is actually a loose adaptation of the 1932 film The Mummy, and the remake was so good that it garnered multiple sequels and spin-offs, although none of them hold a candle to the 1999 film, unfortunately. If you were to go back 10 years where times were simpler and my back didn't constantly ache, and you were to say the words Daredevil to someone, they'd probably wince at you because they think you're talking about the 2003 Ben Affleck movie, a movie which killed the character stock in the mainstream and seemingly buried Matt Murdock for good. Now though, with the 2015 formerly Netflix reboot, which again is being rebooted, the character is seen in a whole new yellow tinted light, with the series being absolutely phenomenal, with epic raid and old boy inspired fight scenes and themes with real nuance on morality and the choices we make. Daredevil is arguably one of the best comic book shows of all time, if not one of the best comic book adaptations, period. All I'm going to say is, Disney, this new series better be good, or I am going to have some choice words for you. We've mentioned Tom Cruise's name a couple of times in this video already, so hey, we thought, why not mention him again? Tom Cruise's Reacher films were okay, I guess. Kind of alright, nothing special, but also not very faithful to the books.
You guys recycle.
Amazon Prime's Reacher series is a much more faithful adaptation of the books, especially with Reacher himself, who with Alan Ritchson has that large frame that's mentioned in the novels, and the series has gone on to be both a critical and a commercial success. mean, Prime's always making popular reboots, right? Because everyone loves Rings of Power. What, no? The short-lived 1978 sci-fi series Battlestar Galactica was one of the many Star Wars rip-offs that were released, which, at the time, failed to compete with Lucas's cosmic juggernaut. However, 2004's Battlestar Galactica reboot surpassed the original by a mile and then some.
It's been an honor.
With it ramping up the quality of the original series, and it has since become one of the biggest sci-fi series of all time, and also a cultural phenomenon. Like Mission Impossible and The Mummy, you may not have known, or heck, maybe you forgot, that Ocean's 11 was a remake.
Yeah.
Soderbergh's classic crime caper is based on the 1960 film of the same name starring Frank Sinatra. The 1960s movie didn't exactly get the best reception, so it somewhat surprised people at the time that it was being rebooted, but with Clooney and Pitt in the lead, it turned out to very much be the right decision. Brian De Palma's Scarface is one of the most iconic and quotable gangster movies of all time, and we think you'd agree that it's right up there with the likes of The Godfather and Goodfellas in terms of quality and notoriety. But before Al Pacino was screaming, "Say hello to my little friend," as Tony Montana, Scarface was a 1932 crime movie set in Chicago by Howard Hawks. While the original movie is indeed a good one, the remake is arguably even better, and it improves upon its predecessor while also boasting a phenomenal performance from the one and only Al Pacino. Speaking of 80s remakes that ended up being better than the original, the 1950s The Thing is also a good movie, but in truth, it does not hold a candle to John Carpenter's 80s remake. With some of the best practical effects of all time, beautiful cinematography, and a story that's rife with paranoia and tension, Carpenter's The Thing is easily one of the best horror movies of all time. And along with The Shining, yeah, that's my go-to Halloween horror movie. Now, I don't know about you, but me, I love me a good Western. And the Coen Brothers 2010 remake of True Grit certainly is a good one. It improves on the already beloved 1969 movie, and, ironically, is even grittier than the original, but it also holds the type of charms you come to expect from a Coen Brothers movie. Plus, 2010's True Grit removes some of the more problematic elements from the original, as well as being a more faithful adaptation of the novel. 2012's Dredd is a cult classic, but it actually was not the first adaptation of Judge Dredd. 1995's Judge Dredd is considered one of the worst comic adaptations of all time, so it didn't take much for a reboot to pass.
I'll be the judge of that.
But 2012's Dredd was such a great film in its own right that it's left fans eagerly wanting more. Amazon Prime's 2016 The Tick series is a great and funny reboot of the 2001 show, as well as the animated series, but it turned out to be even better.
You can't continue floating like an ostrich feather in the hurricane.
In an era rife with superhero movies, it's managed to stand out on its own, and it's easily one of Amazon's funniest shows, with its bigger budget making it better and more timely than the original. 1986's Little Shop of Horrors is another film that improved upon a sci-fi B-movie, but this film went in an entirely different direction. The 1986 film is a musical adaptation of 1960's Little Shop of Horrors and is now very much the more remembered version, as it took the campy horror of the original and then blends it with the music of the beloved songwriter Howard Asham. And that, my friends, makes a perfect combination. The original DuckTales series was a fun episodic adventure show that was pretty enjoyable, but it wasn't much more than a children's show. However, the DuckTales reboot in 2017 used the original show's format for something much greater, bringing in an A-list cast and telling an intricate and serialized story that gives each character an incredibly well-written character arc.
You're finally gonna sell us.
As well as maintaining the fun and the humor of the original, making its cancellation after season 3 tragic. And that's our list. How did we do? What do you make of it? Did we miss any? Let us know in the comments below, and be sure to catch us on the next one.